What's going on, guys? Kevin here, flying solo again today. Just thought I'd do a quick little fun video. I did my last video, I think it was the last one I did, was part twos of horror, and we had a little bit of fun just naming off some of my favorite part twos of horror. So I thought I'd continue the trend today with some part threes. This challenge was a little bit greater than the last challenge. This video, this there's not a whole lot of part threes of horror that I found that I really like and that really resonate with me. So this one was a little bit harder than the part twos. I think there was a few more part twos that I really enjoy. Part threes are a little bit more sparse, but we're gonna do the best we can. There are some franchises that won't be included in countdowns like these just because I'm not a big fan of them. Like I've watched all of the Hellraisers and I'm just not a fan. It's not for me. I've watched every single installment. In fact, there for a while I was binge watching them just so I could stay current, and I'm just not a fan. It's not for me. I don't like Phantasm. I don't like Leprechaun all that much. There's just certain franchises that don't appeal to me. Hate Puppet Master, hate it. I don't like it at all. Children of the Corn is another one. It's just bland. I just don't like Children of the Corn. There's just certain franchises that aren't for me. So if it seems a little repetitive, I'm sorry. I tend to lean towards certain ones that just mean a lot more to me, that I enjoy more. So without further ado, we're going to kick off our number 10 spot here, just barely squeaking in to my favorite part threes. And I don't love this movie at all, but there were a couple here that I had to put because I was having trouble naming part threes of horror that really resonate with me. And the third one of The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. It makes the number 10 spot. And it's by far, to me, I think it's my least favorite of the Conjuring franchise. I don't like it at all. I mean, I don't. Let me say, I don't hate it. There's elements of it that are creepy, but we're dealing with a threat here in this movie that is not supernatural as much as, like, dark stuff created by humans and orchestrated by humans, and it's just not as appealing to me. I like the supernatural edge of the Conjuring films. The first two were excellent, and the fourth one I think gets a bad rap. I think it's better than a lot of people give it credit for, but the third one to me is just it barely just makes the cut here because there were the acting was good, and I did like the courtroom stuff. Regarding defending somebody for doing certain actions or whatever. I just wish that they had played more into that and spent more time with that aspect of it, and it would have boosted this one up some. Number 9, I'm going to go Scream 3. This is at least the bottom 2 of my favorite Scream, ranking the Scream franchises. Will probably be at least in the bottom 2. Scream 3 has always been one that just never connected with me as much as some of the other ones. I like it okay, but spoilers here. When you find out that the killer is Roman, the brother of Sidney, it's like earlier in the film, Roman goes down in this dark warehouse part of the studio or whatever, and he gets quiet, and Gail and the actress playing Gail go downstairs, and they find his body there, and she checks his blood pressure or whatever to see if his pulse, to see if he's actually dead. Okay, any other time anybody finds a corpse in the Scream movie, they don't check their pulse. They're dead. They know they're dead. But for some reason, she reaches in. He looks like he's got a knife in his chest, and she checks his pulse anyway. He looks dead, But I don't know if they did that just to throw you off the scent. But then it's like, well, how does it make sense then? If he has a pulse, he is alive, he ends up being the killer, he staged his death. how did he not have a pulse, or is she just bad at checking it? It does not make sense, and it has bothered me for years. There may be a simple explanation that I missed. If so, you guys comment down below. It drives me up the wall. I cannot stand that one part of this movie. And there's the humor doesn't always land in Scream 3. There are things I appreciate. I do like Sydney in this one. I don't like the ghostly stuff with her mom and all that kind of stuff. It's just, I don't know, it takes me out of it a little bit. But I like Scream 3. I don't love it. I think it's one of the weaker of the franchise. But still, yeah, this is pretty much a strong franchise for the most part. And I think it lands here at number 9 fairly. Number 8, Child's Play 3. This one is to me, it's like the first 3 Child's Play films were all really, really good. Chucky was legitimately creepy and all of that. It was after this, when they went to Bride of Chucky, that it just started losing its edge and started going more comedic and more goofy, and I started losing interest. Aside from Curse of Chucky, after part 3, I didn't like any of them. I haven't watched the TV series, and I don't really want to. But all of the films that I've watched after part 3, with the exception of Curse, I did not like at all. So I think it's really lost its steam. But Child's Play 3 had some legitimate menace in it. Like the parts where they're in the military camp and they're having their war games, and one team has live ammunition. Chucky loaded live ammunition into the guns. That's kind of horrifying. And he's just laughing when they're sitting there just shooting each other and everything. It blows my mind. He was so mean in this. I didn't like his demise as well as in this one as I did in part 2. I thought part 2, I don't think they'll ever top a Child's Play film. In Child's Play, they'll never top part 2. I think part 2 is just peak. But part 3 was a decent follow-up. Decent cast. I didn't care for the little boy actor in here. I didn't think he was very good. Tyler, whoever the actor's name is, didn't really care for him. But it is what it is. It lands right here. I think 8's a fair spot for that. Number 7 is Day of the Dead. This is the third George Romero. Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and then Day of the Dead. So call it a part 3 or not, I'm calling it a part 3. I like Day of the Dead. I don't love it. I'm not big on a lot of Romero stuff. Zombies are hit and miss for me. Sometimes I really like it. Like I love the 1990s Night of the Living Dead remake with Tony Todd in it, the Tom Savini film. I love that, but a lot of the zombie films just don't really resonate with me. But Day of the Dead, you have the military complex, kind of the underground base, and of course they have the famous zombie Bub in there that they've been trying to work with and get to see if they could make him more human again, blah blah blah. And of course that's gonna go south, it is. And then the coolest part of this is when what's his face gets ripped apart by the Horde. That was cool. That was some of the best effects work that I've seen in a zombie film. That was impressive. I didn't care a lot for a lot of the characters, and some of the dialogue was a little bit, I didn't care for it. But overall, I mean, it's an enjoyable enough watch. Number 6, Final Destination 3. Part 2 of Final Destination is my favorite to this day. It's still my favorite. But Part 3 was a decent follow-up to that. This is the one where they have the roller coaster incident at the first of it. And of course, the thing with the Final Destination films, each film, whenever they go see Tony Todd's character, whenever he shows up, it seems like the rules always change. It's almost like they're never the same, but it's always like, there's this little bit of hope that maybe you can get out of it, but you're probably not going to. There's death always finds a way. But there were some really good kills in this. There were some that was just not great, but it doesn't hold a candle to part 2. But part 3 is a decent follow-up, and you got Mary Elizabeth Winstead here, who's always she's always good on screen. She always has a good presence. So yeah, it's decent enough to watch. We're entering the top 5 now, where I actually do really care about these films. I know that the 5 that I just previously mentioned, I wasn't altogether over the top positive about. It's just because, like I said, Part 3s are just difficult for me in horror. They're just not always really good ones. But at number 5, we got Insidious Chapter 3. And this one, when I went to the theater to see this, and I was a little bit taken aback just because they didn't continue with the same family. It was kind of a prequel, I guess, and I don't know, like, is it, isn't it? I don't know. I always get confused on where these all fall in order. I did wish that it had the family tie into it a little bit more and stuff, because I like the family from the first 2 films. But this one does have some legitimate scares. The dude with like looks like he has a CPAP machine on or whatever it is creepy. And the scene where you get the girl who has her leg in a cast or whatever, and she's not able to move much, and she's getting thrown about the room up there, and like she has her laptop screen open, and he just goes over and closes the screen so it's pitch dark in the room. That's creepy. There's some really creepy moments here. I need to go back and rewatch it, honestly, because some of it's a little hazy in my mind, but I remember liking this pretty good. Not as good as the first 2, but I did like it. Number 4, I've got Army of Darkness. This is the 3rd Evil Dead film, and this is where they went full-blown comedy, and that can be jarring to people who saw the first 2 films. Well, the second film had a lot of comedy in it too, but they mixed it with horror. This is just pretty much just straight up silly slapstick, cheesy one-liner comedy. But I think for the time when it came out, it was a lot more palatable for some people. But Bruce Campbell he has a great screen presence. I get a kick out of him. He plays this part so well. This Ash Williams, whatever his name is, he has this presence that's just like cheesy, macho, 80s tough guy image, and really he's goofy the whole time, and it's like he has these one-liners where he just thinks he's all that, but then like in other scenes he's like freaking out because he's got skeletons punching him in the face, and it's goofy as can be. But I love Army of Darkness. It has slid down a little bit in the Evil Dead ranking for me as of late, but it still has a special place in my heart. I'll always appreciate it. All right, we're in the top 3 here, and my number 3 is Friday the 13th Part 3, when they tried to go 3D, and I believe it was diminishing returns. But the saving grace in this film is Richard Brooker as Jason. I think up to this point, and even pretty much since, he's one of my absolute favorite Jasons. His portrayal, that era of Jason, 3 and 4 particularly, Jason was just scary to me. He was a lot more scary than he ended up being in some of the other films. But in this one, they tried to do the 3D effects with a lot of the kills, and it's just, you watch it without the 3D, and it's just so terrible. Like the squeezing of the dude's head, and spring eye comes out flopping like that, and stuff like that, when they're yo-yoing and the yo-yo's coming down into the screen being annoying, stuff like that. They were really going for it, but it adds to the charm of the film now that it's 40-something years later, And of course, this has the scene in it where Jason first puts his hockey mask on, and for the first time, and that's iconic from there on out. So I really appreciate Friday Part 3. It's grown on me a lot more in the last 5 or 6 years than it had previously, and I really appreciate it at this point now. So my number 2, my runner-up, you guys probably already know what my number 1 is, but my number 2 is Saw 3. I think this one has the best traps in the entire Saw franchise. It's got some of the best dialogue with Jigsaw. and again, spoiler alert, this is the one where, you have this guy going through these traps, and he's coming face to face with the people responsible for him losing his son and how that went down. His son was killed in a hit and run. You have the guy who did the hit and run, and you have a woman who witnessed it, and the judge who let the guy off. All of those are entraps in various order. But and of course, this guy's having issues because, like, you find out that there's another lady that's in charge of keeping Jigsaw alive, and she's got a trap of her own. And if Jigsaw dies, she dies, or if she dies, Jigsaw dies, vice versa. So it's like she has to really keep him alive so that she can stay alive. She has like a shotgun collar on, and if Jigsaw dies, it's blow her head up. Well, you find out, that that's actually Jeff, the other guy's wife, and their traps are kind of linked. Their tests are kind of linked to each other. There's a lot of red herrings thrown at you about what's really going on, and then of course you find out that Jigsaw knows that his apprentice Amanda has been rigging the traps throughout the movie, the earlier part of the movie, to be unwinnable. And that's not Jigsaw's way. And so you find out at the end of the thing, like that whole thing with Jeff and his wife and everything was actually Amanda's test, and she failed. And then, of course, you get that moment where Jeff comes face to face with Jigsaw, and he tells him, he's like, look, I'm responsible for the pain that you've suffered here tonight. He's like, so I'm going to give you a chance. You can either forgive me, and I can have an ambulance here in 4 minutes and save your wife. Of course, she got shot. Amanda shot her. Or you can take your vengeance out on me. And Jeff says, I forgive you, but then he gets a power saw and slits Jigsaw's throat. And Jigsaw, in his hand, as he's dying, plays a tape. And he says, you failed your test, basically. And he's like, I'm the only person who knows where your daughter is. And his daughter has been taken and hidden away. And so, it was a gut punch. But man, Saw 3 has got some of the best traps. You have the rack trap where the dude's arms and legs and head and everything's getting twisted completely around. You got the angel trap where, what's her name? Agent Carey has the things hooked to her rib cage, and they fly up like angel wings and rip her rib cage out. There's some really creative traps here in Part 3, and I think to this day it still has the best traps in the franchise. And it's my number 2 Saw movie of all time, and it's my number 2 Part 3 horror film of all time. But if you know me and have followed my channel for any length of time, you know one of my favorite horror movies of all time is my number 1 Part 3 of all time, and that is The Exorcist 3. And guys, I'm not knocking The Exorcist for the time that it came out. I know it was disturbing. I know it was very unsettling for a lot of people. It was shock value at its finest for the time. And I know I'm not going to take away from it. People consider it one of the scariest movies ever made. I'm not going to challenge that. For me, The Exorcist 3 is better. I prefer it better. I prefer the atmosphere. I prefer the actors here, the characters. George C. Scott is phenomenal in here. Brad Dourif just acts his butt off in this movie. And there's the whole psychological game going on here, and there's possessing these people, helping this serial killer, the spirit of this serial killer, to carry out his nefarious deeds, even though he's supposed to be dead. And there's a whole story involving that. And they mix the plot of the first movie and the elements from that and tie it into The Exorcist 3's plot, which is about, it was essentially called Legion because there's a whole host being used to carry out this evil spirit's demises of other people and these atrocities that he just commits. And the detail that they say in these scripts that they go into about how the victims died and what they went through and all this, it's so unsettling. The score and the ambiance that it just sets, it's the mood and the atmosphere. It's great in this movie. I've watched this movie so many times, and it hits me every time. I love this movie, and the acting is so well done. I think it's finally getting its flowers here lately. A lot of people have come around to this sequel, and finally given it its due, and I'm appreciative of that, because after the burn of part two, The Heretic, a lot of people were kind of like, well, that was awful, I'm done, and rightfully so. Part two was awful, and some of the sequels that came after part three, I'm just not a fan of any of them, but part three has really resonated with me to this day, and it is my number one horror movie part three of all time. So there you have it, guys. That's my list. What's your list? Put them down below. Also, please hit that thumbs up button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends. Again, I'm just doing this for fun. I enjoy talking horror with you guys, and when I'm not playing music and everything like that, I like to do these little simple talkies where we can just connect with stuff that means something to me and hopefully means something to you. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me today, but thanks so much for watching this, and we'll see you on the next one.